your end?
It is
Yes.
live.
Okay. Yes. Awesome. Okay, Kevin, so first, thanks for doing this. I am super appreciative. So we're going to start, I think, by talking a little bit about your personal background. You grew up in Texas. What was that like?
It's interesting. As a songwriter, I have a lot of fodder for many stories. Where I grew up, man, this goes right in with the course that you're teaching on environmental classism and racism, because my backyard was Dow Chemical USA. It looked like I was looking at Manhattan from my bedroom window growing up, and everyone down there was blue collar and worked in those chemical plants. That wasn't the only one. There were many down there, and you know, I've lived in different parts of Texas. I now live in Austin, which is like an island in Texas. So I've gotten a little taste of all of it. You know, it is its own world for sure.
So you grew up in Texas with the Dow chemical plant in your backyard. How did that affect you personally? The song that my students listen to, Just Keep the Wolves Away, it seems like a really personal song. It's certainly something that resonates, I think, with a lot of people. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Indeed. So I really didn't know any different growing up. From birth to the age of 15, I lived down there in Freeport, Texas, which is on the coast south of Houston. Like I said, surrounded by Dow Chemical and many other huge chemical plants and refineries and such. And that song is a true story. My father was actually hurt in a chemical accident when I just turned 13. And so it's literal. And it's actually one of the easiest ones to write in that sense. I didn't have to make anything up, you know, tell a story. It was a very specific story, but it also it resonates with so many people down here. Not only working in the chemical plants, but of course, you know, we have this new oil boom again, and natural gas all over Texas, and there's people out there putting their lives on the line for a lot of money every day, doing that physical labor, and they always come up to me and like, man, that really hits home. And so, you know, that one was the easiest one to ever write, maybe, and it's pretty cathartic too. And you say you've seen the video, or you're going to watch the video of the
Oh yeah, I like am a ridiculous fan actually. So my husband introduced me to your music. So you know, we're all kind of geeked out about this. I am in particular. My husband's a little more laid back and cool, but I'm super excited. So yeah, I've seen the video a lot of times. And so one of the things that really sticks out about the video is sort of the absence of the father, actually. Like, he's in the opening scenes of the video, but he doesn't stick around. He's a shadowy figure, you know. We see his wristwatch a lot, but we don't really see him a lot. So what went into the decision-making in terms of, did you make any of those decisions in terms of the film?
Yes, I did, actually. I wanted to tell the story, you know, because it's a literal story, the song itself, but I wanted to tell that in a video form, and so I wanted to tell the story of the little kid growing up and then being a teenager and then me now. And so I cast all the characters, all friends of friends, and kind of made that work. With the father being gone, it's just telling that story of him always working and then working overtime. One of my earliest memories is, you know, this is all landlines before we had cell phones, was to never answer the phone on the weekends or after 6 o'clock when Dad got home, because it was probably work asking me to come directly back in. I made that mistake once when I was a kid, you know, and answered it, and yeah, my dad's here, and he couldn't say no, you know, like Saturday morning, and then he had to go work all weekend. Been working 80 hours the week prior, you know. But that's how it was.
Yeah, my dad, not to, you know, just sort of as a conversational aside, my dad's a construction worker, so we had similar things. Not necessarily environmental concerns, but working class for sure. And the type of labor that just betrays the body. You know, it's not something you can do forever. And it's what my dad's really good at. There's also this sense of masculinity. There's a whole lot of identity tied into that kind of job. And whenever it goes away, it's really scary. So how did your family deal with that after the accident?
It got tough for quite a while. He shouldn't have lived through the night. Um, we grew up in Freeport, and he worked in chemical plants there. Then he was moving up. He started sweeping, and then learned how to maintain all of these huge chemical rigs and such. And so got big there. And then he joined a team that cleaned up chemical spills, anything west of the Mississippi. It's a elite team, and he did all this training and everything, kind of trying to get out of the chemical plant, but make a little more money. Um, but he also wanted to kind of help. He was always like a volunteer firefighter as well. Anyway, this accident happened 45 miles away in Galveston, Texas, which, like it says in the song, in the port of Galveston. And there was a ship that was spilling in liquid form a chemical that was released in gaseous form in Bhopal, India in 1984, which I'm sure that you guys probably study if you have a class on environmental uh, classism, because that's the ultimate example. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, Union Carbide in 1984 had a chemical plant in Bhopal, India, and it was surrounded by shacks that extremely poor people lived in, and then walked to work. There was an overnight gas release that instantly killed thousands of people. And there's actually a big deal going on with it now, still to this day, because there are deformities, kids being born like that, generations down. And it's an interesting tangent, but a few years ago it was bought by Dow Chemical,
Okay.
which, of course, is the one that I grew up with that in my backyard. So there's all these weird ties into it. But anyway, that same chemical was spilling in the port of Galveston in liquid form, and my father went to clean it up. And as they were slowly lifting the cover off of the valve on top of one of these tanks, it exploded. And so he suffered extreme chemical burns over about 80% of his body. The only reason he lived is because the burn unit at Galveston, the hospital across the street, was there, and it's one of the best in the world.
Hey, can you hear me? My computer.
You there? Oh, no worries. Yeah. Oh no. It just says waiting for people to join this call, so maybe you'll be able to just link back to this one because I'm still live. Oh, no worries. Correct. Oh, awesome. Okay, no problem. No, please don't. No worries. I'll hang tight on this end.
Let me see if I can just try to get this video call ended because of your.
Not yet.
Okay.
We're back.
You see me?
Yes.
Thank God. Okay. Oh, shit. Okay, I'm going to hang up the phone. Um, and then I'm going to ask you more questions.
Let's do it.
Okay. Let me put my earphones in. Hold on. Okay. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm pretty sure before my computer interrupted us, you were talking about Dow in the backyard and what your family sort of had to go through after that. It seems there's a lot of research done on the way that environmental disasters disproportionately affect the poor and the working class. What was that? How did that affect your family growing up?
You know, it was almost catastrophic because my father was the only breadwinner. And, you know, this was in the early '90s, and so I mean, my mom never worked, so she had to get a job. Not many skills, just a high school graduate. Both my father and mother were just high school graduates. If it weren't for that job, we wouldn't have been as well. We were very lower middle class, you know, but he was able to get that work and move up from the bottom up and you know, build things, and that's where we were at that moment. But that's the thing, is there's no insurance that you're gonna not get hurt one day. I have a lot of friends down there whose fathers were hurt in separate accidents, you know, different ones that didn't make it. You know, that's just kind of the chance you take. It's just it's part of the deal, the high risk, many hours. You know, like going back to the video, the father is shadowy because he was just never there. You know, just always working. But I always knew that he was taking care of us and doing that for us. Uh, so I don't have any complaints about it, but it was, you know, it was tough, and it was tough on everyone there because you had to work no matter what. You had to get by and go work hard. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can relate to that in my own life. Obviously, I didn't have the same experience, but really similar. You know, my dad went through his own stuff, not an environmental disaster, but a sort of physical one that left him unable to really work in the same capacity that he had always done. It's a lot for a family to deal with, I think. I sort of keep the wolves away, actually, like in my own life, so I really do relate to it. I wish I didn't, but I do. Okay, so let me see. What else do we have here? So clearly the ideal of environmental classism is strong in your writing. Why is the topic something that you feel so strongly towards? Is that like a mode of expression, or is it a cry for political change, or both?
You know, it began as with that song itself, just telling that true story, because it was one of the it kind of made me who I am. That was a big event in my lifetime, and it affected my whole family. Everybody's good, everybody's alive and doing well now, but it was tough for quite a while, and you know, uh, it took years. There was a legal battle, and he got a little bit of money, not much. We were able to move away from there.
Hmm.
The doctor told him, "You have to move away from here," because it got in his lungs. It was pretty
Yeah.
bad. You can't breathe this air down here. So we moved to Northeast Texas, kind of the country, and so that was kind of cool. But um, it made me not want to have to go do that.
Yeah.
Not want to go work in the chemical plant. So, I studied hard in school. Uh, I was a banker at the age of 25. Yeah,
You were a banker?
I was a banker. I
No way. That's crazy.
Yeah, but I didn't want to go of that corporate ladder and do that thing because I wasn't loving it, and I quit it all at the age of 25 and moved to Austin with the guitar because I love to sing and write songs, and I just kind of started from the bottom there and moved up and learned quite a bit and surrounded myself with great musicians and did this whole thing. But a few years in, as the band's touring and we're doing this thing, we released an album. I thought about this whole deal again because my father was needing to work again and he was getting to the point where he could. And so my father actually had a job as a dog catcher. And so, he didn't have many other skills, and there's nothing wrong or anything with being a dog catcher, but I don't know, the link to thinking about the wolves and like him having to work again, and that song just came. I just told that story. I had never told that story. But it's been our biggest song to date. It's kind of put us on another level, especially here in Texas, because it specifically talks about, Galveston and these things. And there are a lot of people that work in the oil fields these days, especially here in Texas, and they're doing the same thing. They might not make it through the day, but they're going to get paid really well, and they're just trying to make their money and get out. It's just hardworking people, and they want to raise families and do well for themselves and their family, which you can't be mad at them for that. But
Well, and if it's not people working in oil, it's people working in coal or natural gas. I mean, it's an issue I think that disproportionately affects the working class, and it's often the people who do it are the workers. The sort of, not to be too Marxist, but the proletariat, not the owner of the company.
Sure. And it's the human story. It's been like that before our time, just on a bigger scale now. The interesting thing about Texas, and going back to your question about affecting me disproportionately, I was poor in a sense growing up, but we had everything because they worked really hard and made pretty good money. But as soon as he was hurt, like it was bad. We were eating peanut butter and jelly for a while. It was tough for a while. It was just like that. And there are people that lose their husbands, and then they have to go face the world without any skills and raise some kids. It's tough. And then they do move these chemical plants into poor areas. And minority areas. Where I grew up was about 40% Hispanic, Freeport, Texas, when I was there, and lower class, and that was the city. The interesting thing though is in Texas now, and I don't know what you know or believe about fracking.
Yeah.
But I see it doing a lot of damage, and it doesn't pick class now. It's everywhere. It's kind of wherever they can put a well and put some chemicals into the ground and put it in the water, it doesn't matter. There are people with money, and especially like outside of Fort Worth, where they have quite a bit of fracking for gas. There are people there that are getting sick because of that, and this is a whole new thing now. It's kind of taken a step, like it's morphed into something more. It's affecting everyone. So there's a double-edged sword there. Because
I think the more that it affects a wider swath of people,
right.
the more likely we will be to see change.
Exactly.
Whenever it disproportionately affects the poor, they're powerless. They don't have the money or the resources to really make the kind of change that's going to matter. Whereas people with money obviously have more political currency.
Exactly. And so I like to see the silver lining in that maybe some people who have a little bit of weight will say something and something will happen. But it's a hard fight, especially in Texas, because people love their money and their big trucks and oil. I don't mean to be stereotypical, but there's a pretty good majority, especially in the towns, like in West Texas and stuff that was built on that. And I travel all over Texas, and I meet these people, and I just try to see the things that we have in common, and I really see like my projects, my next one's moving towards telling that story, not being on one side or the other, but just telling that story and being a reflection of it, and kind of letting it be out there, and people take what they will from it, and maybe I feel a bit of a responsibility with it, I think.
So yeah, it seems like you do a lot of volunteer work. At the end of the video, you have a food bank, a food charity kind of thing. Whenever you think about your sort of social responsibility, I mean, do you just use your art as a platform for that? What do you think about that? What about the sort of mingling of art or music and politics?
Well, I try to stay away from politics.
Okay, well, so I don't mean politics in this sort of like go Barack Obama way, but I mean, this is a political issue.
Of course. We chose the food banks because you can help locally. And when the accident happened when I was a teenager, we kind of relied on the food bank for a little bit, to get through, like I said, peanut butter and jelly, and there's still people out there that need the food banks, and they help in these situations. There's always somebody there that you can go to. And, I wanted to just tell the story about the accident and keep the wolves away and not make it a judgment on either side. Just let it be its own thing, and I hope to do that more and not pick a side. It's hard not to because I know where I want to go. But I want to see the human in everyone. I believe that can transcend, this is my own personal opinion, but I think it can transcend, like, I need to fight against this specifically. I'm not saying that that's not for someone else, but for me personally, that's not where my fight is. I think my battle is to tell the human story and then how it affects us as humans, and then maybe it'll motivate someone to have a little empathy and move towards it on their own, because you can't convince anybody of anything. They have to convince themselves. You can maybe shed a light, plant a seed.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and one of the things I think your story does so well is communicate that to people, and it doesn't seem to have a political agenda, but it tells a story that's really personal, that works really well. To get back to Texas, you live in Austin now. Austin's known for its music scene. How have you benefited from being in Austin? How does that scene work for you?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's the reason I moved here with a guitar 12 years ago now, and I delved into it and met so many people and started doing it just really badly at first, for no money, and you just go do it because there's plenty of places to do it here, and you just hone your skills, and I was able to do that and grow and make the connections and build the band, and then now this is our home, but we travel all over. Mostly Texas because that's our region, but Austin, there's no better place that I could have gone to be able to do this. I had to put myself in the center of it, and this definitely is the center of it in the Southwest, so it's been totally beneficial.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to the show. You guys are going to be playing at Knuckleheads in July in Kansas City. I'm going to be there.
Well, excellent.
Were you in the audience? Okay, so I've just got a couple more questions. So I read somewhere that you're a poet. Is that, how accurate is that?
You
Because
know, I
I'm a
don't.
poet.
I may be a poet in the form of a songwriter. I mean, I think of songwriting as poetry, um, but I'm not a poet. There are real poets out there, but I don't know.
Okay,
I
so
wouldn't call myself a poet. But
okay, no
I guess
pressure, no
a
pressure.
poet in the line of like the great songwriters. Like I love the Towns Van Zandt and the Nelsons of the world, and they're poets. You know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Towns Van Zant's one of my favorites all
Oh yeah.
time. Yeah. Okay, so what's your songwriting process like then? Do you have like a
So
method?
you know, it's always a little bit different, um, which is cool. It's the creative process. It may come all at once. You may have to nudge it quite a bit before it comes out. You come with an idea and nudge it. But it's weird. The best ones I find come all at once when I'm just there, aware, and ready for it. Like I'm able to capture it. It's
Is it
almost
like
like
a, go ahead.
it's almost like it comes from another place. Um,
Yeah.
it's a connection to a greater source. I don't know how to explain that or what, but it's about being in the right mindset and ready to absorb it.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. It's kind of like a space that you enter or something. Like there's HD, who is a poet, was a poet, talks about, she sort of talks about poetry as radio waves. And so it's like if you have your receiver on, you know, and you sort of groove into it, you're gonna get the poetry or, you know, the songwriting or whatever it is. Does that,
Very much so.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right on actually. Um,
yeah.
and you know, it's interesting. It comes out through a filter. Once it gets into your head, it'll come out through the filter, your own personal filter, and that filter is kind of made of what you have been filling yourself with. You know, I like to not watch a lot of TV. Uh, you know, like uh, you know, read the right books or read something that's inspiring or be out in nature. You know, those kind of things help me to write better, I think, instead of letting things get in the way. You know, the everyday life, the things that we do, they build up and they kind of can block your filter.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I haven't been writing for a while, so I'm taking notes here. That's good. Okay, just a couple more questions. Do you have like literary or musical influences that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Again, Towns Van Zandt, Willie Nelson. Uh, Towns is definitely a poet. I mean, good songwriting, you say quite a bit in the smallest amount, and that's good poetry as well, I guess. You just really say it and just floor people with a turn of like two words. That's what I aspire to. But I also love the great singers like you know, Otis Redding or Bobby Blue Bland, uh, the real singers that came from down here, down in the heart, you know, from the solar plexus down in here, you know.
Yeah.
The ones that really were connected to it, and I don't know, you can just tell it in their performance. Literary terms, I guess, man, I have quite a bit, but when I moved to Austin, I got introduced to Bukowski, and he's dark and negative quite a bit, but you can read some of the stuff when he's in his 70s before he passes, and you can see that he kind of lightened up and changed. But no matter, that's not here nor there. What really hits me about him is he can really tell that story and get everything else out of the way and just tell it like a blank slate and just put it like it is. Like everything else goes out the door, and he can make the dirtiest, most horrible thing beautiful. And it lets me know there's beauty in everything. You know?
Yeah, and I would say that the Keep the Wolves Away and a lot of your songwriting in general sort of has that transformative power where you look at something that's incredibly tragic, but there's always this beauty to it, this undertone I mean, loneliness and humanity that just, I think, somehow you see the tragedy a little bit differently at the end of it. Does that make sense?
Of course, it's catharsis, and it's I have to throw this down in this conversation because my father, very recently, within the last 6 months, for the first time ever, he said, "You know, I'm glad that everything happened the way that it did because I wouldn't be where I am now." He's happy. And he realizes that although it was bad for a while, every experience has made him who he is now. And so we were playing a show in Austin, and a gentleman that was on the top of the tank with my father when the explosion happened, sitting across from my father, and saw it all happen and like got him to the emergency room and was very shaken up by it, who hasn't seen my father since that night. He and his wife came to our show, and he took me aside before the show and he said, "How you doing? I was on that tank with your father. I haven't seen him since, and I just want to know, is he okay?" Because he felt very guilty. You know, like the survivor guilt type of thing.
Yes.
And like a week prior, my father had told me about being happy and like thankful that everything happened and that he's here where he is now, and no regrets. And I was able to tell this the gentleman, and he had this. I saw it with my own two eyes. He had this clench in his jaw that just lifted right then when I told him that, and a tear came to his eye. And that was the ultimate catharsis, just right there in the moment. And it all from a song, that led him over there. Like he said, he told me, "I heard that song on the radio, and I knew who they were talking about. I knew that was your dad." Yeah. So,
that's heavy.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome. To come full circle like that. I'm really glad that your dad is doing well. That's.
And I want to tell you the video, the last scene. That's actually my mom and dad sitting at the table.
My students asked me that. They asked if it. So they will be so glad to hear that. That's awesome. Very cool. I think that's about it. Is there? I do have one more question. So my students are going to be giving speeches in this really awkward format tomorrow and Thursday, and I was just wondering if you had any advice for overcoming stage fright or speaking anxiety or anything like that, besides beer.
Yeah, you can't drink a six-pack before you go to class. Or you probably can, and you probably do. You know what? It's about being prepared, I guess. The only times I really get nervous, I've done it so much now performing in front of people that I only get nervous when we're doing a new song or it's like a cover that we just learned or there's a part. Like, I'm not the best guitar player, so I have to really work at that. It's about preparedness. And then just going and being in the moment. And that's the only thing I can say is when you don't think about anything else and just are focused and prepared, I think that's the best. That's the best answer I can give for that.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I've been stressing over and over again. Also, try Google Hangouts on air before you use it. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the time that you took to do this. It was really generous of you, and appreciating you from Kansas City.
Oh, no doubt. Thank you so much. I'm honored that you asked me to do this. Been stoked about it all week, so thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in July.
Yes. Awesome. Sounds good. I'm going to stop the broadcast, and then I don't know if it stops us, but we'll see. So either way, goodbye.